Spring AI, streaming requests, Heaven Can Wait, the movie, the great unsubscribing, and the usual collection of silly tweets and toots. Welcome to Tales from the Jarside. Welcome everybody, my name is Ken Cousin. This is my free weekly newsletter, video version. The idea here is to let you know what's going on in the IT world that is worth paying attention to and what probably isn't. So this is the newsletter for the week of June 30th through July 7th of 2024. And the big thing I did training-wise is I taught a course on Spring AI. And that was a bit of a challenge on the O'Reilly Learning Platform because Spring AI changed so much since the last time I taught that class. They're still in pre-1.0 phase. I'll talk about that in a moment. Let me give you the basic introduction. Regular readers of and listeners to, and of course, video viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, please subscribe using the button on the newsletter or on the YouTube channel. The newsletter is hosted at kencousin.substack.com. My name is Ken Cousin. Moving on. Speaking of Spring AI has been changing versions rapidly. There's been a lot of effort going into it. It's still pre-1.0. They are currently on 1.0.0 milestone 1. And last week, when I taught the course on Monday, the schedule on Spring claimed that they would move to the release version on Tuesday. Needless to say, that did not happen. I put a lot of time into the upgrade because there were so many changes in what was done to it. Now, one of the things that's helping that preparation a lot, or maybe it's just motivating it more, depends on how you want to look at it, is Craig Walls is currently working on a book on Spring AI in action, and I'm helping out as a tech editor of that book. So I have to be aware of what he's doing, and he's, of course, enmeshed in all of that right now. So his book's website, I put a link in the newsletter, is basically a placeholder at Manning. It's going to be over in Manning. They call that the Early Access Program, MEEP, Manning Early Access Program. I'm sure that'll be happening very soon on that. My book, which has the working title of Adding AI to Java, is also getting ready for its beta. Look for that certainly within the next month, maybe within the next few weeks. I have a GitHub repository for this. It's called Spring AI Examples Repository. It's at github.com/my last name, KOUSEN/Spring AI Examples. And I spent a lot of time not only bringing that up to date before the class, but then cleaning it up a bit afterwards. So there's lots of examples in there, and you might find that interesting. My favorite one had to do with some examples of what they call either function calling or tool support, depending on what web page you look at. The terms are used pretty much interchangeably. I did an example like that with LangChain4j, which I happen to be very fond of. But this time I did it with Spring AI, and it's in the GitHub repository. It has to do with calling an exchange rate service in order to compare prices from different locales around the world. You can take a look if you like. The class went fine, although I'm really glad I spent all that time on it. Again, there were a lot of changes. The idea was they were supposed to go to milestone 2 soon. Now the current schedule is they'll go to milestone 2 toward the end of this month. I believe that happens on July 23rd. That's the tentative schedule. And they are now tentatively scheduled for the full 1.0 release at the end of August, so August 26th. But they've missed every deadline they've set, so we'll see. I don't want to count those chickens before they're hatched. Okay, moving on. One more technical thing I want to talk about this week. In many of the APIs, the ones interacting with AI tools, interacting with OpenAI or even Ollama or Gemini or Mistral or even Claude, the one from Anthropic, they all have a way to get back streaming data. So rather than simply getting back a single response at the end of the request, you can actually get back an individual section at a time or individual tokens, however they measure it. This is what makes it look like when you use the actual ChatGPT, it looks like it's just spitting out an individual one word at a time sort of thing. And if you're interested, that's available. I wound up putting together a mechanism in my book, I wanted to make sure that I could demonstrate this. And it was one of those humbling experiences. Not that I couldn't get it to work, it's that I didn't even realize that what I had to do was to add the value of the stream property is true input request, and that would enable it. Now, Google does it differently because, of course, Google. So this is a sample curl request from the OpenAI documentation. You can see they have a content type and the authorization header. And then inside the body, you specify the model you want to access and a couple of messages. So there's a system message and then a user message. And what's interesting is what's missing. Because all you have to do for a streaming one is throw in at the bottom here, stream:true. I know that, I just didn't really do it, and therefore I had to update everything and make it all work. Mistral does the same thing because Mistral uses the same API as OpenAI. Claude did something similar, and Gemini did it differently because Google. So at any rate, I got it to work, and I got a little bit of demos there, and I think I'm probably going to add it to the book. I just don't know how much. I'm even tempted to make a little video out of it because it's interesting to see. But I don't know. I think even when I was talking to Craig about it, he referred to it as a parlor trick. You still want to get the answer when the answer is ready. Is it really helpful to see the data coming back element at a time? Maybe. We'll see. Let's move on. Time for a little bit of nostalgia. I saw recently a movie that's one of my all-time favorites. It's called Heaven Can Wait. It's the Warren Beatty classic from the mid-70s, from 1977. It's technically either a romantic comedy or a sports movie or what have you. It depends on how you look at it, but it's got a phenomenal cast. Warren Beatty was the star, and he co-wrote it, the screenplay. He co-directed, along with Buck Henry, another one of the actors in the film. He produced it as well. It was just a huge effort on his part. Julie Christie's in it, Diane Cannon in a great role for her, Charles Grodin, wonderful job, Buck Henry as well, and one of my favorites is James Mason with his fantastic voice, was the authoritative and Mr. Jordan there. If you don't know the movie, I'll just give you the basic idea, is that Joe Pendleton is that's Warren Beatty's character. He's a backup quarterback for the Rams, for the Los Angeles Rams. And back in the 70s, they played in Los Angeles. This is before they moved to St. Louis and then eventually moved back to Los Angeles. And he's about to get his first start, and he goes out riding on his bike, and he's celebrating, and there's an accident in a tunnel, and it looks like he died. And he's in a way station on his way to his final destination, wherever the ultimate destination will be, when he realizes that he's not supposed to be there, that this is wrong. Something went terribly wrong with this, and his escort had pulled him out too early. He wouldn't have even got into the accident at all, supposedly. So the powers that be, Mr. Jordan, decide he has to be returned to Earth, but unfortunately his body has been cremated, so he can't go there. So the only other alternative is to put him in the body of another man, as long as that death has not yet been discovered. And it's all about him being put into this Leo Farnsworth, a billionaire industrialist, and then how he reacts after that for the time being. Now, that description doesn't really doesn't do the movie justice. It's really wonderful. Here's the poster from the movie. You can see that. He never actually has wings in there. I think that's just a metaphorical there. But it's got the great cast. It's a wonderful movie. Now, why am I bringing this up? One is I got to watch it again for the first time in about 30 years, and it still all holds up. I loved a lot of it. But the other reason is that Joe Pendleton, when he arrives at that way station, insists he's not supposed to be there, insists that they check to make sure that he is supposed to be there. Mr. Jordan gives this wonderful quote. He says, "Yeah, I want to check out on Joe Pendleton. The likelihood of one person being right rises in direct proportion to the intensity with which others keep trying to prove him wrong," which, hey, that's a metaphor. And there he is on the left. That's James Mason on the left, and the guy who pulled him out of the way station on the right. And the response is, Joe Pendleton scheduled to arrive here at 10:17 a.m., March 20th, 2025. Back when the movie was made, that seemed like forever in the future. And I looked at that, and I was watching the movie, and I went, whoa, that's like several months from now. That's 8 months from now. Right? Amazing. So I know that some of the people I follow on Patreon periodically have viewing parties. They live stream a video and they all watch it together. I don't really know how that's done. I'm going to have to look into that because next March on the 20th, we have to have a viewing party for this movie. We've got to do it. And I checked, and in fact, the movie is available on Amazon Prime. So that might be a mechanism that allows us to share it. I do have to put in one other thing that threw me out of the movie, but mostly because it was so funny. As a spoiler in the movie, one of the things that happens is he winds up purchasing the Rams. He bought the team. And the former owner is up in the stadium and just lamenting, my team, he got my team. This son of a bitch got my team. And his friend says, what kind of pressure did he bring, Milt? And the owner says, I asked for $67 million and he said, okay. Ruthless bastard. And it's, oh my goodness, nowadays, and I looked it up on the Wikipedia page of most valuable NFL teams. Nowadays, the Rams would be worth just under $7 billion and maybe more. That's just an estimate, of course. Of all the crazy things that Leo Farnsworth supposedly did while he was being occupied by Joe Pendleton, that's the best business decision he would make in his entire career. Yeah, he massively overpaid for a team that was supposedly at the time worth $19 million. But add a couple zeros to that, and that's what it's worth now. Incredible. It was really fun. It's just wonderful. And I said, other than maybe buying Apple in 98 or NVIDIA a couple of years ago at the start of the AI boom, who knows? Next section, the great unsubscribing, as I called it. I have been going crazy, and I realized that I'm getting interrupted far too often with notifications and news items and breaking news and all kinds of stuff going on, and I really needed to cut back on that. So in what I am fondly referring to as the great unsubscribing, I decided to make myself feel better by unsubscribing to as much stuff as I could. That I only kept a handful of things and just got rid of newsletter after newsletter and notification after notification. I put a little message on Twitter and on Mastodon saying I decided I want to be a low information voter, which of course I've never been. Since my very first presidential election back in 1980, believe it or not, I've always viewed politics as a spectator sport and wanted to follow what was going on and get involved, and I just can't take it anymore. Now, this has been true for the last couple of elections, to be honest. So I said, how do I go about being a low information voter? Is there a class I can take, of course, as a gag? And what I did is I unsubscribed to the New York Times, Washington Post, you're on notice, The Atlantic, you're next. We'll see. And I did all this unsubscribing, and I already feel better. I have to admit, this has just been a good move. All right, next, let's go to our tweets and toots. This one I have to run by some of my Australian friends, but the Terrible Maps Twitter feed is always entertaining. And this one was a map of Australia for Americans, and it divides up Australia into a whole bunch of regions and labels them in what would be familiar areas for Americans. Like down here in the corner, that's where they've got DC and New York and Massachusetts and California and Alaska and Texas over here. I have a friend who spent many years in Perth over here in what would be Texas, and that guy's from Texas, so maybe that worked. I don't know. I have friends in Brisbane. I have friends in Melbourne. I got to ask them how close this is to reality, but it was very amusing to me. This one was how many lights? So this is the Star Trek Next Generation one. It says how many Cardassians does it take to change a light bulb? I don't know. How many? It depends on how many lights you see. Of course it does. And you want to scream, there are 4 lights. And all I did in my response was say, well, I'm guessing either 4 or 5, one of those. I don't know. This one I labeled Hungry, Hungry Hippos. This was a post on Mastodon. It said the hippo can run faster than you can. The hippo can swim faster than you can. Your only chance to outpace the hippo is during the bicycle stage of the triathlon. So I went to DALL-E 3 and I said, hey, generate an image of a hippo riding a bike in a triathlon. And this is the image that I got back. And I'm not sure what the rainbow colors are about or what that sign above it is supposed to be saying. You know how these generators are with text sometimes, or what those times mean or anything. But what the heck? It's better than nothing, I suppose. This one I've heard before. There was a book written about this rule of 80, and you get so few data points you can always find some association here. And it pointed out that in America, every 80 years roughly, without fail, America's had to overcome authoritarianism. The first one was the Revolution, 1780s. Now they're saying 1780s, but you could put that a lot further back if you wanted. That was the American Revolution. In the 1860s, it was the Civil War, so insurrectionists trying to establish a slave-based empire in the Americas. And then 80 years from then, you get to the 1940s, which is World War II and the Nazis and all of that. And in the 2020s, we've got a party basically pushing for authoritarianism too. And why does it happen every 80 years? And some people speculate maybe it's because those who witnessed and stopped it the last time have passed away. Now it's our turn to save and renew democracy. Yeah, okay. Again, it's not a lot of data points. It's 3, arguably 4. Okay, but interesting. This capitalism use case, this is showing a use case here. As a frog, I want to be boiled so that I maximize shareholder value. Isn't that a statement of latter-day capitalism? Moving on. This one says, my wife leaves me sweet little notes like this. Communication is so important in a marriage, and it's got an official warning. Danger, your spouse is in a potentially hazardous mood today due to, and there's a bunch of check marks, something you did, something you didn't do, something you did in a dream, something outside of your control, or all of the above. And below the note says, please be cautious and keep your distance and or purchase gifts. The note says, leave me alone, pick up tacos for dinner, give me the tacos and back away. Thanks. Pretty good. Whatever keeps you happy, I suppose. This one here said about a bear in the woods, and you see the bear is behind the tree here, and says natural camouflage. For the longest time, I couldn't find anything in that image. Even now, I'm not totally sure. So I think that's pretty funny. That's good. So have a great week, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you all next week. I do have a little teaser. I published a technical video this week as a Java feature tier list, and it's doing remarkably well. It's actually going viral for me. Not viral in an absolute sense, but given my channel, this has been an amazing viral video. I've got over 500 to 600 views within a couple of days, and for me that's extraordinary. I'll talk about that more next week. Otherwise, you can see everything on the YouTube channel, and I will see you next week. Take care.